pay that $1,000. The Irish government on behalf technically are going to pay the $1,000, but the Irish government hasn't got the $1,000.
Well, it's got it. Yeah, it's got it. It's got the claim on the future. So it's going to give the rich fuckers another few more years of productive labor, of taxation on employment. It's going to give them more fucking wealth.
The Irish government's going to have to pay, borrow the $1,000. So the Irish
yes, at interest. So it's not only that they're going to borrow it in the sense that they've got to pay it back to these rich people, okay, because they have all the stuff, and so they have to pay this premium price to get some stuff from the rich people so they can give it to the other poor country. So not only going to have to pay a premium to get the stuff, they're going to, and, you know, they're going to have to pay it back, you know, in future dollars plus interest to these motherfucking greedy bastards.
The government's going to borrow the $1,000 and lend it to Greece, and Greece isn't going to give the money back. But it's just how, when you start a system on something that's, we could even say, dishonest.
Oh, right. Again, so you're going to blame the fact that all these nations chose not to tax their citizens, but instead to borrow trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. That decision to borrow trillions of dollars has something to do with fractional reserve banking. That if fractional reserve banking didn't exist, the governments wouldn't have borrowed the money. That's your fucking argument? Then it's a bullshit argument.
Fractionally reserving of actual gold in a vault. You are probably likely to get to a time where everything in your system goes rotten. And I believe...
And this is a pile of crap. Again, like I say, it doesn't have anything to do with fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking is just simply put, I mean, I don't know how to make this simpler for you, but it's a way of deedifying everything. All stuff ends up having a deed. Even this little matchbook has a deed attached to it, a value assessment. A piece of paper now can be put in the bank, and I can borrow on this. I could put this in the bank, and I could get back its value from the bank. That kind of thing can take place now, but they don't have to take possession of it. Like, they can just own the deed to this matchbook. All right? And so it's just deeds. Everything is turned into a deed. So there's a deed for every piece of valuable stuff in the fucking economy. And that's all that fractional reserve banking allows to take place. And in theory, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly sensible that everything of value should have a deed.
That's the time that we are at now. Anybody that's read anything about the Greek bailout can read it just as... can't think of the word again. Or any word to describe what it is, but it describes the situation that we have now. It's utter madness. I'll give you a hint that the Greeks' austerity measures are a bit like the Irish, a bit of a token gesture, a bit of a fig leaf. Sorry, Ireland, but it's not.
Yeah, right. And see, but that's Nick's philosophy here. Is he's basically claiming now these rich nobles, basically these rich kings that own the majority of the assets in the world, this 1% of the human beings who own the Mississippi River in essence, and who just keep collecting money. They have this money, this stuff collection engine, because they can collect this interest, this tax essentially, on using their industry, the thing that they own. And so this tax, this profit engine keeps generating value claims. People have to keep giving them more and more stuff to use their river, so to speak. So their stuff piles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And as I stated, now they're able to convert because the government needs a piece of that stuff to do things. It needs the stuff. And so they can now lend the stuff to the government so they can do stuff. But they're going to collect not only interest back, but what they're going to collect is a claim on the future. They're going to, because that's all the government owns. The government can't, it only owns so many Yellowstone parks. It only owns so many Grand Canyons. And so it's the amount of money is borrowed is more than the amount of the value of what it owns. And so the only thing else it has is the tax base it can tax. And so that's what these rich people are bartering in, is the future. And that's what fucked the system, is now they own so far into the future that there's no friggin' way you can run an economy that way, because too much of the asset value has been diluted by this claim on the future.
Real austerity. It's not meant to actually get the Irish or the Greek governments or economies into new fighting shape so they can go on into the future. It's just...
and by new fighting shape, Nick is basically saying they're not. They have to work 12 hours a day and get paid $1.50 an hour like the average Chinaman. They have to get back into the. They have to become slaves to the goddamn motherfucking capitalists. That's their responsibility. As human beings, it's their responsibility to be a proper slave to the fucking owners of the fucking goddamn system.
A palliative. It's not anything but bullshit. It's just to pretend to somebody that's maybe called the markets that they are actually doing something, and the system is in some way curing itself or making itself better or working, when it is clearly not.
Yeah, it'll just keep the game being played a little longer, and I guess long enough for the rich to build a big enough moat around their castles to keep the pitchforks from reaching them.
The whole bailout process was obviously from one part of the banking sector to the other part of the banking sector. There was like the NAMA project in Ireland was not to help the Irish people or anything to do with that. None of this Greek bailout is to help the Irish people. It is all banking, using government to help banking. But government are not...
It's just a deceptive way of explaining the circumstance. I mean, the circumstance is that there's this tiny percentage of human beings that own all the industry, and they keep demanding profit, all right? And they can't drive any more profit out of the system, and that's where the system is going to die, is because they can't drive more profit. So what do? They create this idea of interest, and now they just say, well, here, we'll derive profit from merely lending money to the desperate, okay? And that's how we'll derive our profit. And somehow it's the desperate's fault because they fell into the borrowing trap, and there's no way it can be sustained into the future. There's no way they can keep paying the bill. Okay, but the claim on that bill being paid exists today. They say they own it, okay, and they're going to keep collecting a profit. And even though it's unsustainable, okay, they keep investing in that system. And you know it's going to fail, and I know it can't succeed. And whose fault is it? Is it the lender's fault or is it the borrower's fault? Now I'm going to argue it's the motherfucking lender's fault.
Totally being used as pawns in this. It's like king and queen, whatever it is. Governments know that the system that was started on fractional reserving gold and taking...
No, the system that was started on borrowing money. All right? If the United States government never borrowed any money, ever, okay, it always paid its bills, taxed its people, paid its bills, you couldn't contrive this fucking argument, all right, that fractional reserve banking had one single thing to do. Europe would be crashing because it was borrowing money, and America would be the owners of the world because they hadn't borrowed money. It's that simple, and you goddamn know it.
It up into meaningless tokens is a confidence game.
Interest is a confidence game. As soon as you apply interest to surplus and to stuff, as soon as you make some stuff interest-generating stuff versus stuff that doesn't generate interest, okay, then you break the system. Because how are these things going to stay at the same value? They can't. It's impossible. So their value's got to be distorted. Or somehow you're going to have to pay that interest, and the only way you pay it is through inflation. So eventually the system has to collapse because you're forcing stuff to be a generator of productivity, and this piece of stuff is not going to create. This piece of stuff will not create 3 more pieces of stuff. It's not going to do a goddamn thing. So how's it going to pay its bill? How's it going to pay the interest? The interest has to come from some other piece of stuff. You have to steal some other stuff. You have to get value somewhere. Damn it.
And no government wants to be the one that breaks the entire confidence game for the world, which could rationally and reasonably send the entire world into a new dark age. So there are people that are naughty